Hey, welcome back to Dukes on Twitch. Back today with a donation deck list from Lorenzo. A huge thank you for the support. This is a pretty cool green, white, red Maverick list. So the actual splash for red is pretty low. In the main deck we have Klothys, which has been a card since printing that's pretty much always seen play in Punishing Mav. Right now I would say it's one of the main reasons to play it. It's just such a hard to deal with threat, and it gives the deck a bit of diversity with how it actually attacks different strategies, because usually Maverick is obviously just a creature heavy deck that dies to a lot of removal, sweepers like Terminus, and Klothys is interesting because most of the time it's going to be able to kind of dodge a lot of that, just being an enchantment that's on the field that a lot of opponents find it pretty hard to deal with. Maybe something like a Teferi, Time Reveler Bounce, or a Council's Judgment, but otherwise pretty tough. There are new printings in cards like Prismatic Ending and Skyclave Apparition, which are both in this deck, which I could definitely see being ways that opponents can really deal with Klothys now. But before those printings, it was pretty tough. It was kind of like once it's on the field, it's on the field for good. Especially in the Maverick mirrors, Klothys was a pretty hard one to beat, and you kind of had to play around it a little bit. Maybe use Scavenging Ooze to negate its power on the match. But the other big cards that you get with a red splash are Pyroblast and Red Elemental Blast. These are two cards that are pretty unique for Maverick. Maverick's not usually a deck that plays on the stack, but the red splash obviously gives that, which is really nice. And I like having a mix because of cards like Meddling Mage against maybe humans or Espervile. You might bring it in against Hogak if you're really scared of Hedron Crab, and of course they play Cabal Therapy, so there's definitely reasons to mix them up. But just a really nice way to also deal with the Delver of Secrets, Adjacent Mind Sculptor. It's really nice because the flexibility of Pyroblast and Red Elemental Blast is that if you have it for the stack, that's fantastic, but if a blue threat resolves, you can also deal with it once it's on the board. So even something like Uro, Pyroblast is just the most clean way to deal with an Uro or an Icewind Quotal or a Snapcaster Mage that Maverick really has. It doesn't allow your opponent to get that extra value of the card draw or the ETB effects, so really nice to have those. Flame Blitz is a Modern Horizons card, which I haven't played with yet, but I'm pretty keen to see if it works. It is a 1 red enchantment that at the beginning of your end step, this enchantment, Flame Blitz, deals 5 damage to each Planeswalker, which is pretty brutal. 5 is a lot, and then it also has cycling of 2, which is pretty cool. So if you've maybe dealt with Khans and then surgicaled them, or you're not too scared of Planeswalkers, you can just cycle it to find more pressure, which is pretty cool. But yeah, Flame Blitz, I'm going to be bringing it in against the Khan decks. Probably a lot of the blue-white decks that play Teferi and Jace. A little bit narrow, but I don't mind testing it. I think it's a pretty sweet card, so pretty cool to see that. Obviously, some other Modern Horizons cards in here. Starting at the mana base, we have Yavimaya, Cradle of Growth. This is a land that acts like an Urborg, where it turns all your lands, actually all the lands on the field, into forests, which is pretty cool, especially when you have a card like Scribranger, which to activate its ability, you need to return a forest you control to your hand. So what Yavimaya allows the deck to do is not only produce green from cards like Wasteland and Horizon Canopy, which means you no longer have to pay pain or life for the mana. It also allows you to return any land with Scribranger, which is really cool. So if your opponent is on Wasteland and they kind of suspect that a Scribranger might be around, maybe there's a chance you can like save a Karakas or a Gaia's Cradle or a Yavimaya thanks to Yavimaya's ability, which is pretty cool. Not something that has come up before, but we'll see how it goes. We also see a main deck Endurance and a sideboard Endurance. This card is just powerful. I mean, the floor of just a 3 CMC reach flash 3/4 body is huge. There's a big reason why there's a lot of players testing it right now. I know there's a few BANT decks out there with 3 in the main deck. It's lining up perfect against Delver, perfect against other flies like Flickerwisp. The 3/4 body is just really hard to beat, especially when a lot of the Bolt decks are really relying on opponents to have X3 or less creatures, X3 or less toughness powered creatures. Opponents' creatures I've screwed this up. What am I trying to say? Yeah, a lot of blue-red decks like Delver do have hard times dealing with creatures that are bigger than 3 in their toughness. We saw that recently with Threadhorde Arcanist and Oko leaving the field, how good it is to just have a 4/4 Knight against Delver now. It's quite hard for them to beat, and it was, of course, before that as well. Knight as a 4/4, especially in game 1, is pretty much only susceptible to either multiple bolt effects or something like a Brazen Burrower. So the 4 toughness on Endurance, I think, is what really sort of pushed it over the edge and made it something that people want to play in the main deck, or just want to test in Legacy pretty aggressively. Because this card is huge. It also makes a few bad matchups a little bit better. So a deck like Doomsday, which I wouldn't say as a Maverick player you should be siding for. Doomsday's pretty tough because it is a combo deck that doesn't really get affected by a lot of the common combo hate Maverick offers. And Endurance luckily is one of them, because what Endurance allows you to do is wait for them to go off, play a Thassa's Oracle, trigger on the stack, you can make them shuffle their graveyard into the library, and then of course the trigger will resolve. They'll have too many cards in their library just to win, and then they'll deck themselves. So it's pretty much game. I know a few players have been testing things like Stifle and a second Oracle in their Doomsday pile to play around Endurance, but it is a nice little uptick, a nice little reason to play Endurance in the deck against Doomsday, but I wouldn't say it's, turned the matchup on its head. What else we got? We have a main deck Skyclave Apparition I really like. It is just a one-off, so we are going to see it not as often as I probably want to, but we do have Sylvan Library to dig for it. And it obviously just is a really powerful effect because it can reach for Planeswalkers, it can hit anything from creatures to enchantments. So I do like knowing that I have Skyclave in the deck and can draw into it. Prismatic Ending, I would say, is probably the biggest printing for Maverick in Modern Horizons. The flexibility of this removal is so good that I'm really happy to play it in the main deck, and really happy that Lorenzo has allowed me to play in the main deck here, because it's just so flexible. From hitting a turn 1 Vial to taking out any sort of creature or planeswalker you want, it's just been phenomenal. It's been so nice. And especially because you can use it off a basic planes, I'm really happy about that. It's actually quite good against Storm as well. I find that usually your turn 1 play on Maverick gives away your Maverick. So if your opponent wants to play around Thalia, they might be play out a Lotus Petal or an LED a little bit earlier than they want to, just to play around Thalia's effect. And Prismatic Ending is just a 1-mana removal spell for those. So that can be pretty crushing, because otherwise Prismatic Ending isn't that great against Storm. It's really a case of, just being one of those spells that lines up pretty well based on our strategy against other strategies and how they kind of change their game plan based on that. But yeah, Prismatic Ending I think is going to be a staple in Maverick for a long time to come. Maybe not in the main deck, but I think at least one in the sideboard is just something we'll be seeing for a long time. To the board we have Surgical Extraction and an extra Endurance for the graveyard. Not playing any sort of hard graveyard hate here, so something like Leyline. We do have Scavenging Ooze in the main deck. No, we don't. Ooh, but we do have Klothys. So we have ways to interact with the graveyard, but we don't have something like Leyline or some sort of relic effect to make sure that the graveyard is always offline as a resource. So against a deck like Hogak or lands, it might come up that it's a little bit more difficult, but usually Surgical, you can go after some of the engine pieces and then just try to run them over with your threats. So I'm not too concerned about this current setup of Graveyard Hate. Deafening Silence, a great card. I mean, it's a 1-mana interactive spell against a lot of combo decks that Decklist Maverick have an interesting time against. A lot of our power is at turn 2. We have Thalia, we have Green Suns for 2 if we accelerate turn 1. We have cards like Ethison Canonist, maybe Sanctum Prelate if we're lucky, but yeah, Deafening Silence is just nice because it's a nice turn 1 play against decks where we want to buy some time to land extra threats like Thalia or Gaddock Teeg. And that's the thing. I think that with Maverick players, as they play the deck, they definitely understand that most of the pieces that you have are just speed bumps, and that if you rely on them too much without building out extra pieces of disruption or pressure or both, you are just going to get run over. So it is a case of Deafening Silence not being a game-winning spell, but usually a spell that buys you enough time to then land another threat or another piece of disruption that your opponent has to deal with, and then maybe another, another piece of disruption. So it's kind of getting that ball rolling, and Deafening Silence gives you time to get the ball rolling, which is good. Choke. Choke's cool. I'm a big fan of Choke. It's definitely interesting with the change in a lot of Delver strategies towards a lower tier of threats, so a lot of sort of turn 1 threats, which can be pretty bad for Choke, because if your opponent plays turn 1 Delver, turn 2 threat, and your turn 3 is going to be Choke Pass, a lot of the time you're just going to die to the swing back, or your opponent's going to be in a position where they don't really care about the Choke. So you do have to be cautious of when you're going to cast the Choke, and making sure that the coast is clear so that you can actually untap after it. Also with decks like BANT Miracles, they do play a few islands, but they can definitely get around Choke pretty easily. So I wouldn't be relying on it for some of the mid-range sort of control decks. Second Gaddock Teeg. Second Gaddock Teeg's really interesting. It obviously is really nice against decks like BANT, where Swords to Plowshares is probably going to get rid of the first if you don't have something like Mother of Runes in play. So having a second can really catch your opponent off guard. So I do like it for decks that have cards like Terminus or Jace. But I'm not going to rely on it for decks like Ant or Tess, because a lot of the time they'll be dealing with Gaddock Teeg in your end step and then trying to go off the following turn. So having the extra Teeg in hand doesn't really do a lot. The only thing I like about second Teeg against decks like Ant or Tess is if the first one gets taken with Thoughtseize, you have a second one in the deck. Not just Thoughtseize, I guess any disruption spell. But yeah, knowing you have the second one and knowing your opponent probably isn't going to play around the second Gaddock Teeg is pretty nice. So we'll see how that comes together. Sanctum Prelate, a really cool card. I know Achilles27 is a big fan of this card. Pretty good when you know what you want to be naming, but obviously as printings come out, it can be pretty tough. There was a time where something like Gaddock Teeg, Mother of Runes, and Sanctum Prelate on 1 was kind of lights out for Miracles, because you turned off Terminus and Supreme Verdict, and then Prelate turned off any sort of cantrips or Swords to Plowshares. But now we have cards like Teferi Bounce, we have Council's Judgment, and Prismatic Ending now as well makes it really tough. But I guess Prismatic Ending is actually turned off by Teeg. This is actually an interaction I only just found literally now, because Teeg stops non-creature spells with X in the name. So I guess we do have to consider that if we have a board where we need to remove something with Prismatic Ending and then we draw Gaddock Teeg, there might be a situation where we don't play it just to make sure we can draw into Prismatic Ending and cast it. But that's actually pretty interesting. I didn't realize that adding Prismatic Ending into the main deck increases our X spells to 6, which hopefully doesn't come up, but we'll definitely see how that goes. That's pretty much it. We'll see how this goes. I'm pretty keen to play it. I think the big thing here is that this deck isn't playing Punishing Fire or Lightning Bolt. It's really bringing in the Prismatic Endings and Skyclave to deal with extra threats, which I definitely don't mind. It makes the mana base a little bit better, which is nice. And yeah, always cool to see a little bit of innovation and see how different lists go. So I hope you enjoy this content. If you aren't subscribed already, definitely subscribe. I usually upload twice a week, usually fair decks like Maverick. I'm a big D&T player, and a few other decks, so check them out if you'd like. I'll see you in round 1. Cheers. Hey team, welcome to round 1 against I'm Sleepy Ease. Looking for a Mana Dork start. This is a Mana Dork start. It's a turn 2 Thalia or turn 2 Knight. I don't mind this, I'm going to keep it. Basics are also nice as well, just to make sure we can get our mana off at a good time. And I'm not really relying on red mana in this deck, which is nice. It's really just Klothys in the main deck that I have to worry about, which is a Green Sun's target as well, so not too bad. I do also have a bingo card going, where I have some challenges to get through by playing Maverick. One does include getting 4 knights onto the field at once, so we'll see if we can get that off in this league. All right, a blue-red Delver deck. There you go. I'm just going to go ahead with Basic Forest into Dried Arbor here. I don't want to open myself up to Wasteland on the Taiga too early on. Opponent actually just 6 there, so it means they don't have a Force or Daze, or they don't care about a turn 1 play, which I don't think is really where I want to be. They did just show a Force to the Delver, so that's pretty interesting. Probably just another Bolt here on the Dried Arbor. Okay. A really quick start, my opponent. So they have 2 cards left. Oh, Endurance is really nice. Let's see if we can get a Thalia down and then Endurance next turn. Okay, so they have Force and another card in hand. Not too sure what that card is. All right, so now they have 1 card in hand, and we know that it's the we know that it's Force of Will. So because we have Cradle, the Mum here is actually free because we get to play Mum, and then we have 2 creatures. So Cradle Tuts for 2. So I'm just gonna main phase that. Let's go for Mother of Runes, Land, Endurance. I'm playing it here because I don't want them to draw a blue card and then just have Force pitch. Oh, I am just casting this here. This also puts them back on their Dragon Rage Channelers because it will shuffle these cards into their deck, which is really nice. So puts them back a little bit more. We are just going to pass here because I don't want to take any damage really. I don't think my opponent would attack anyway into the Endurance, but you never know. Wasteland is fine. That's actually pretty nice for us because now these Knights are 4/4s, so the Knights can't even be bolted either. So that's pretty huge. Swords, all right. Well, here I'm pretty happy just to play Knight and just pass back. I guess actually here I'm in a pretty good position to attack with the Thalia. This is pretty much free, because my opponent's not going to be able to attack anyway with the Dragon Rage Channelers next turn. The Mum's online as well. Endurance, I think, was the really big play here. Forked Bolt. Okay. So they get to Surveil first. This will kill at least 1 creature. And I assume it's going to be the Thalia, because I will save the Mum. Yeah. I'm saving the Mum because down the line it's just so much better. And if we draw another Thalia, it's going to be dead if there's already a Thalia in play, so I don't mind this. It also means that if we draw a land here, we can play Knight and hold up Sword without having to use this Knight. Wasteland's pretty good. They still just have the Force. I'm not in a position where I have to hold up the Sword, which is nice. I guess they are pretty close to making these Dragon Rage Channelers a little bit bigger. Let's do some quick math. Okay, so next turn if these become 3/3s, because it's 4, I believe, Delirium. Yeah, 4 more cards of different card types. They currently have Sorcery, Creature, Land. They can swing for 9. We block 1, take 6, go to 8. But if we attack here for 5, they go down to 12. And then the following turn, we will just have lethal with the other Knight. So I think what we can do is play Knight. Take away a Volk. Attack for 5. Okay, this puts a sorcery in the bin, which is still fine. But they do get these triggers with the Dragon Rage Channelers to maybe put an instant in the bin. Looks like they're going to keep that card on top. Especially in game one, this is going to be pretty hard for my opponent to come out of. Oh, another Wasteland. Well, that is probably going to seal it. I think here I'm just going to swords the Dragon Rage Channel and just show that we have lethal. I assume my opponent might have force here, but then it's still pretty bad. Yeah, so now we can tech out a Volk. Attack with everything. They have to block something. They block here. They don't block there. They block here. Okay. Yeah. Really tough one for my opponent to get out of, but fortunate for us. So Delver's going to be interesting. I do like the extra endurance, especially just as a reach creature as a X4 as well. I'm not a big fan of the Thalia Pride Mage, the Gaddock Teeg, the Collector Ouphe. So usually with Maverick, straight away I'll look at my Green Sun Zenith targets and see which just don't have an effect on the game. These three are usually there. I'm not too scared of cards like Blood Moon or Back to Basics or Winter Orb. So I am just going to go with these. I also have the Prismatic Endings to get out of those as well. So these are three easy ones to take out. I do like at least some amount of Pyroblasts. I think because of the deck build as well and how aggressive they are, I don't mind taking out the Sylvan Libraries. They're not going to be too relevant. So I'm going to take out these and bring in an extra Prelate and maybe one Choke. I don't mind this. Prelate's also pretty good. Prelate on 1 is good, but it does turn off our own Swords to Plowshares and Pyroblast, Red Elemental Blast effects. So I think Prelate's always in a tough spot. I know some players really like it against Delver. I'm usually not a fan because it just locks me out of a lot of stuff unless I've used removal early on. But if I have used my removal early on, I'm probably in a pretty good position that I don't really need the Prelate on 1 after that. So it is pretty tough. I do like Mum, I do like Swords, I don't mind Hex, but Submerge is always the big card that I'm a little bit weary of. Also Fork Bolt. So I might even drop the Hex as well and just bring in that extra Pyroblast. I think that's pretty solid. Beast is still pretty good as a 4/4 and just a haste creature to really race their clocks. Prismatic and Swords are really good. I do want to try and use the Pyroblasts on some of their creatures that, like Delver and the Dragon we saw go into the bin, because Swords does answer the red 1-drop. And also we saw Ragavan, so that's pretty interesting. I think this will be okay. I would actually like a pretty reactive hand with maybe some mana acceleration, just to make sure I can win the early game. This is an interesting hand because it's going to be a keep, but I think it's a little bit greedy, especially with the Cradle. A Delver deck is very good at keeping me off creatures, so Cradle a lot of the time won't be tapping for mana, so I can't really see it as a mana source. But I think on the draw this is more than fine to keep. If I draw 1 land, I'll be really happy, because currently I kind of have to go for a Savannah of this Noble Hierarch, which puts me in Wasteland territory, which can be a huge blood if they have like Bolt or Fork Bolt and Wasteland. I'm also more happy to run the Noble into a Daze than the Swords to Plowshares, just because removal in this matchup is a huge resource, and I don't have the luxury to dig for it with cards like Ponder or Preordain. Or Brainstorm. Opponent also kept 7. Island. Preordain. Okay. Let's see what Preordain does. Preordain is 2 cards on the bottom. Okay, so they're digging. They're digging for something. Okay, there's the extra land, which is perfect. Let's fetch here for a Savannah. I could also go for Taiga if I really wanted to turn on my drawers for something like Pyroblast, but right now I think I'm pretty happy to go for Savannah. What Noble Hierarch also achieves is that I can now just play a non-accelerated game and play around days the whole game. So I can still play a turn 2 threat on turn 2, but thanks to Noble I can also play around days, which is pretty sweet. Opponent really going for basics early on. Okay, Ponder's going to be a put back on top. Chose not to shuffle. Ragavan. Okay. Choke. I don't mind swords on this into Thalia. Just to get it off the field. Although Forkbolt here is pretty huge, but I can't really do anything about that, unfortunately. I'd love to see a Force here. We don't. That's going to be fine. Forkbolt a really good card here, because it also turns off the Cradle, so it's essentially a 3 for 1 if we don't draw a land. Oh. Okay. Sadly, I can't get 6 mana here, but I can get 5 mana, which isn't too bad. I'm going to pre-main, pre-combat, just in case of any sort of shenanigans. And then I am going to sack this now to make this a 4/4. Just get it out of bolt range. Endurance. Oh, that's pretty interesting. Okay, let's go to attacks. Fetch here most likely just for bolt. Okay. Brainstorm. I'm a little bit reliant on the Cradle here. Something like one removal spell or a Smurge would be really backbreaking, because my hand right now is pretty clogged up. But I can do something like, if I get to untap, use the Noble Hierarch and the land for 2 mana, Knight for a 3rd, play a Knight, and then have 3 mana off the Cradle to just like try to slam the choke. Okay. This is fine. Klothys. Okay. Pretty happy just to pass here. Just making sure I don't have something... Yep. All right. Forkbolt me. Interesting. I'm not going to use the knight. Swords. Well, that is a start. I'm going to keep back the knight and see if I can snag this Dragon Rage Channeler with endurance. That'd be pretty cool. So they currently have land instant sorcery. They want to put a creature in the bin if they can. We are at 10, so we do have to be pretty concerned about our life totals. This looks to be that dragon, I believe. A new card, which is pretty cool. I haven't played against this yet. So Murktide Regent is a 7-drop with Delve, so a little bit like a Tombstalker, but it has, when it enters battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it for each instant and sorcery exiled with it, whenever an instant or sorcery card leaves the graveyard, put a +1/+1 counter on Murktide Regent. So pretty sweet. It's going to be an 8/8, which is huge. Still don't want to grow the knight. I want to keep as many lands in the deck as possible to see if we can draw into one. Which we can't just yet. There is a world where I should be using the knight, to be fair, but hopefully it's okay. Pyroblast is a really nice way to deal with Regent if I can. Alright, we got a 2. Guess we pass with endurance up. So whenever an instant or sorcery spell leaves your graveyard... Interesting, they're going to daze. That's actually a misplay. What they should have done is wastelanded one of my lands first to see if I use the knight. I guess now it's lethal anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Yeah, okay, I actually take that back. Tough. How do I want to send this back? I think I just want to send it back. Just the same list. Yeah. A little bit awkward with the cradle hand, but otherwise can't really complain. I guess I could have used the knight, but I really wanted to keep as many lands in the deck as possible just to make sure I was increasing my chances to draw one to play one of the many 3-drops in my hand, so the reasoning's there. But yeah, tough one. Basics early on would be nice as well if I do have the luxury of it. Love to play first. This is probably a mulligan. It doesn't have a green source, which is tough, and it has acceleration, so I'm going to mulligan this. Well, I am going to keep this. We have the Caracas for an ape anyway. I'm not sure if they shave on apes because we are a creature-based deck, but I'm going to keep this. And then I'm just going to bottom the Savannah, I think. And go basic. Yeah, I don't mind Savannah. Everything else I kind of want. Sure. Mum. That's not too bad. The question is, do I want to build up my mana as well with Green Sun Zenith? I think I do, just to have an endurance that I couldn't put into play. Okay. Delver's going to be fine. Pyroblast. Nice. I probably don't mind taking one more turn to see if I can draw into a 4th land to hold up Pyroblast to save my endurance. Still no flip, and they're going to fetch. Must have been a land on top. I think you'd take a 2nd threat in a creature, and if it's not a creature, an instant or sorcery, then it has to be a land. This is fine. I could also Pyroblast the Delver in response, but I think I'm going to allow them to try to set up the Delver first. I probably also want to keep the Pyroblast for the big dragon, because we currently have 2 ways to deal with Delver, and Skyclave and Endurance. So I could even leave the Skyclave for the 1 red drop, and then Endurance for the Delver. But if they wasteland me, if I don't draw a land next turn and they wasteland me, I'm definitely going to go for Pyroblast on Delver. Just to kind of clean things up. Okay. I'm probably happy getting Plateau here, then I have access to all my colors. Thalia is actually not the worst draw here. It's okay. Wasteland being really strong for them in these games, which is tough. Usually we're the Wasteland deck. This looks like it's going to be the Dragon as well. Gonna just Endurance now. To play around them being able to like brainstorm into a removal spell. I'm gonna take one hit here. Opponent still has 4 cards in hand as well. It's pretty good. We don't have double white, so we can't cast the Skyclave yet. Really solid threat. Maybe I was just a bit too aggressive on the Pyroblast on Delver. I just wanted to make sure it was off the field if I untapped and didn't draw a land, and then I had the mana open if I drew a 2-drop like Thalia. But I did speak about, you know, keeping it for the Murktide, but obviously that didn't happen. Opponent's on 4 cards. Preordained first. Having a good think about it. One top, one bottom. Alright, 2 cards left. Kind of just have to block here and then get pro. Let's see what they do. Now we 6. Oh, they had nothing? Okay. Well then. I'm gonna Skyclave away a dragon because the Delve is a little bit easier to draw to deal with, especially if we draw into like, say, Pyroblast, then we have 2 blue spells still to deal with. Maybe they're brainstorming, they want to see how they can surveil here. They're going to petty theft something. Try to petty theft Mum. This is interesting. So what I can do is actually just give Mum pro blue, which I will do. And what that does is actually stifle the effect. So what will happen is on resolution, there actually won't be a legal target, and petty theft will go to the graveyard. It won't go to exile. I'm also just going to wasteland my opponent here as well. Just to try to take them off as much mana as possible. They flip an instant like a brainstorm, they can turn this into a 3/3 straight away. They hit submerge. Okay, that's pretty huge. That is just going to be game, I think. Well, pretty much. If they submerge the endurance. Everything. Yeah, GG's. Rough. Cool games, a lot of back and forth, but yeah, just couldn't keep up with their threat base, unfortunately. Alright, we'll see you for game 2. Thanks. Hey, welcome back to Dukes on Switch, playing against Artie Mac. This is game 1, and this hand's okay. It has removal, acceleration, interaction in Wasteland, card draw in Canopy, which is nice because we do have a few lands here, so see how this goes. Prismatic Ending, a really cool card. Swamp. Yikes. Could be a bunch of things. I'm pretty happy to go Savannah into Noble here. Could be Pox, could be Reanimator. Could be like ninjas, but usually they have a turn 1 play. Swamp doesn't give away too much. Okay, this is looking like Deadguy Ale. Pretty happy just to wasteland this off. Let's go for basic into noble. Try to get that mana advantage going. Kai is pretty good because it deals with the noble here. That's rough, because that's really what I wanted to get off the Windswept Teeth, but that's going to be okay. I do want to deal with the Kayak because it's going to start removing lands that are great for Knight of the Reliquary. So hopefully they leave me with this Prismatic Ending. Yikes. Now the card I really don't want to see is something like Dark Confidant or Stoneforge Mystic. No land. Just going to end step draw here. I will draw in response. Okay. They probably get Batterskull or the new. Yeah, they get that. That's pretty good for us. Huh, okay. Changes things a little bit. I'm just trying to play around Wasteland a little bit. Using swords here because we can Skyclave the Kaya. Cool choice in basics. I do like those. Bob's pretty good. This might even be a situation where Bob is just enough for me to use a Skyclave for. Yeah. Just to take them off as many resources as possible. Sylvan Library is a nice way to get back into the game. Just have to make sure they don't have too much here. Lily of the Veil is okay. We'll sack the Dried Arbor. Could still draw the other... Oh, haha! Okay. Nice. All right. Attack Lily, attack them. Great draw. That was a huge draw. A fourth land for them. Can just 6 here as well. Although we're in a good position, I really want this library to stick, so I really want to hopefully dodge any sort of hand disruption this turn. Because Sylvan Library at 17 life is really appealing. Especially against Deadguy Ale that really goes after your resources. Another Lily, that's okay. We'll sack the Skyclave to get a 2/2. Alright, let's get rid of the... attack them and get rid of the Kaya, hopefully. Yeah. Lily I don't really care about at this point. Especially with the Sylvan Library. I'm going to find creatures to play around sack effects. I'm going to find cards to just play around discard. But I do want to try to keep this questing beast alive as long as possible. Jide is pretty solid. Definitely no blocks here. This is fine. They did tap out for that, which is interesting. Huh. You beauty. Oh. Okay. I probably am just paying 8 here. Even though I can't play the Thalia yet because of the Jide. So let's attack them. Play waste. Hit a scrubland. I'm gonna hold the Thalia. and just hold up sword. That does represent Dried Arbor if they are playing it, but I believe they're just going to be on a black-white deck, so... I'm going to block first and see if they use any counters. Okay. I'm going to see if they use all of them. They don't. Okay. It's pretty good for us. That is a reason to play the Thalia, but I think that's okay. Oh, Ramanap's huge. Play Ramanap first. Get back Wasteland. Wasteland Scrubland. I probably could have waited till end step to see what they fetch, if they fetch anything, but we're in a pretty good spot. The Wasteland's relevant there because it keeps my opponent off some sort of double spell, and I think that's how Deadguy can definitely get back into the game. Even something like Creature and Equip Jide is pretty big, but hopefully... Beast has just been so good this game. MVP for sure. This is probably a matchup where Klothys is really strong as well, because it's very hard for my opponent to deal with outside of maybe Skyclave Apparition or Silent Prismatic Ending. Interesting. Okay, Deadguy Ale. I like the prelates, I like the knight. I don't mind the endurance, it's just a flash creature. I actually like the flame, which is funny. I think it's pretty good. I don't like Thalia's or Ouphe, although we did see Stoneforge Mystic, so I might keep the Ouphe. I'll drop the Gaddock Teeg. This is a tough one. It might actually just be the extra endurance. Yeah. Maybe it's actually... I'm not bringing in prelate. We're bringing in endurance. A flash creature against a deck with sack effects is pretty nice, in case I want to keep like a big knight. But I do want to have a pretty low to the ground hand, hopefully with a Sylvan Library that I stick. Endurance has been solid. I do like testing Endurance in the deck and Klothys without Scavenging Ooze, just to see what it's like, but Scooze is just such a good creature that it's really hard to determine what sort of graveyard hate you can run that's enough to not run Scavenging Ooze, because even if you take the graveyard relevance out of it and just have it as a creature that can get bigger over time, and life gain, it's pretty huge. Like, it doesn't just have to be there because it beats graveyard strategies. The incremental value you get just from gaining life here and there, or it becoming a 4/4 or an 8/8 is, yeah, huge. Nice little bit of YouTube exclusive, but I just finished up the Bug vs Maverick matchup analysis, which will be going on the greensunzenith.com pretty soon. So looking forward to that. A big thank you to Nam for putting that together and helping me out with this. Alright, opponent taking the full amount of time for sideboarding, which is 100% correct. Should always take as much time as you can. Alright. This is just a little bit too heavy. I mean, I'm not doing anything until turn 3. I don't have a great way to deal with any engines like Dark Confidant or Stoneforge Mystic. Dried Arbor in hand is also terrible. I'm gonna mulligan this. I don't really want to go down to 5 against a deck like what they're on. So actually, I'm going to keep this in bottom of Savannah. I think hand disruption and things like Hypnotura can just pull my hand apart too much. But at least I have some acceleration. I have a basic to go off. I have some good pressure in Questing Beast. If it resolves, we have backup Caracas to save it. If we get to untap, we have a bird to sack to a sack effect if they try to get rid of the Questing Beast that way. So, see how this goes. Wasteland Pass. This makes me think they have a turn 2 Bob, which is a pretty perfect target for Skyclave, let's be honest. Oh, okay. I guess I could draw a Noble Hierarchy, yeah, perfect. And then I have to think about the land that I want the least, and I think it's just Caracas here. To get hit by Wasteland. Yeah, so, okay. So if they tap out next turn for a Thalia and make me sack, playing Caracas also means I can untap, play a second White Source and play Skyclave. But if I play Taiga here, they get rid of the Noble, then I can't Skyclave next turn. So I will go with Caracas Pass. Okay. Take QB. Okay. Oh, no land. Wow. All right, let's save this and let's play. Actually, let's save Taiga. Let's save Taiga. Get in for one here. Opponent just has gas in hand, which is really, really powerful. If I can get rid of this scrub land, then it'll be awesome, but it looks like they're going to be able to get out of this. All right, game on. That's pretty good. I don't mind this, seeing I've already used an Edict effect. I'm also going to drop the Prismatic. I'm going to drop the Skyclave if they make a discard. Because they don't know about the Prismatic ending, I believe. They only know about the Skyclave from the Thoughtseize. And if they wasteland one of my white sources, I can't play the Skyclave unless I draw a land, but I can cast Prismatic with just one white, which is really nice. This is probably the matchup where Sylvan Library is the most relevant because Deadguy have a pretty hard time to beat it once it's in play outside of something like Skyclave or Prismatic Ending. I don't think they have much else. Maybe a Disenchant effect, but yeah, Sylvan Library just so nice. Alright, so we're discarding Skyclave here. I kind of hope they wasteland us because it means they don't double spell. Lingering Souls is pretty good. Very cool. Oh, okay. Now I have the ability to Green Suns for Klothys. But I think ending on Lily is just better. I will attack Lily to see what happens. Red and white. All right. Oh no, I should use the Krakus. I should have used the Krakus there for a point. I didn't, and that's very relevant. Now I just hope we get a turn where I either dodge Hand Disruption and then draw a land after they wasteland me here. But this feels like a 2-spell. Feels like Lingering Souls flashback and something else. They actually discarded the Cauldron, so they don't have Stoneforge Mystic in hand. Jide is pretty good. We do have Knight of Autumn, which is nice, but it only goes so far. Ramanap is not relevant. We also have Qasali Pride Mage, which is nice. Because that gives me Exalted, which puts me in for an extra 5. I think that's better. So if I get Qasali Pride Mage, I hold open a mana, and they can gain 4 life. If I play, if I get Green Sun Zenith for Knight, they can kill the Knight and then gain 2 life. I think just getting Knight's better. Yeah. It's also nice, I guess it doesn't really matter. That's actually an interesting one. Let me know in comments if there is a reason to go for either. If there's like a significant reason to go for either. I kind of like Qasali Pride Mage in the deck because it's just a good draw, especially if I get Wasteland next turn. They wasteland me here, I still can get it back with Ramanap next turn, which is kind of cool. This feels like a Lingering Souls kind of turn. Oh, Plague. Okay. Probably naming Human. Yeah. I like Ramanap here, get back land, build up Hex. And then next turn we can either build up the Hex or Green Suns for Klothys. I kind of like getting Klothys just because it's a little bit more fun, but we'll see what happens here with this turn. Voidwalker. Interesting. I don't think I can get anything that's really cool. I guess Questing Beast is pretty sweet. Questing Beast already in the bin. It might just be tick up. And then next turn I can actually just get an exalted creature and attack for lethal. So it gives them 1 turn to draw something here. I kind of hope to see the flashback Lingering Souls. This is fine. Wow. They think they have it. Oh, okay. Oh, we kept Qasali Primate in the deck. Oh my gosh, this is exactly why. So we can't get Exalted off Noble Hierarch, but we can go and get Qasali Primate for the win. So good. Oh, I love it when a plan comes together. So good. Yes. Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. Now we have our reason. But this is, yeah, this is exactly my thought process of getting the knight over the Qasali Primate, is that it might come up. It might come up that Qasali Primate is relevant. So good. That was a banger of a game. Oh, so cool. So cool. All right. Composure. We'll see you for game 3. Cheers. Hey team. Up against Sawa. I believe we'll play it a few times now over the past few days. And I'm trying to remember what they were on. I feel like it was Doomsday, but I could be wrong. I'm going to keep this. I think it's a pretty good hand, especially with Sylvan Library. We have Acceleration turn if we really want it, so that's pretty nice. Misty. Underground Sea. Honda. Okay. Chose to shuffle. Alright. Well, to me, that's a huge sign to just Wasteland here. True, the 3rd Wasteland as well. Please don't ritual me. Ah, no. Yep. Well, we tried. The only thing I can do is draw into the 1 of Endurance in the main deck and pitch one of the green cards to it. But unfortunately, Doomsday is one of those decks that Maverick doesn't have that much interaction with, so... Do have some good sideboard cards. Deafening Silence can be pretty tough for my opponent. I'm just going to Wasteland here to see if the shuffle's relevant. I assume not. But I think that's my only play there. Is try to buy myself 1 more turn. Looks like I did. Didn't matter, but... Oh, okay. Well, now we can Swords this in response to the trigger. Oh, they have the Force? Rough. Well, that's game. I mean, we put ourselves in a position to try to win, so I can't be too unhappy. Deafening Silence and Endurance are fantastic. I don't mind the blast effects just to slow them down. I don't want the Swords to Plowshares. I don't mind trimming on Knights. Skyclave isn't really needed. I actually don't mind Choke, just because it is something to do. Collector Ouphe is fine, Mums are fine, Hexdrinker is a nice early threat, which is good. Ramanap's a bit slow. Let's bring in the extra Choke. This is probably it. Prelate's actually pretty good on 3. Klothys is a little bit too slow. This is probably okay. Really want some 1-drop interaction. Not it. It's got the endurance, but that's about it. Bottom choke. I'm gonna bottom the prelate because I might want the. Actually, I'm gonna bottom the prismatic. It's tough because if they know we're on Thalia and they play out an early pedal or something, then I do want a prismatic ending it. So I think I just bottom the prelate here. Play foothills and pass. Opponent cap 7. Deafening Silence great because it does turn off the Dark Ritual turns. But we did just keep a 1-lander, so that can definitely suck. Really want to see like land, cantrip, and a like pedal effect. On top, on bottom. Land. Oh my gosh. We do get the second endurance, which is interesting. Maybe the 1-lander just gives it away that we're on endurance. At least Thalia next turn, if we do get a turn, allows us to play a little bit around force. I also don't want to get Dried Arbor here because if I draw into a non-white source, I can't play Thalia. I mean, if double endurance doesn't do it, I don't know what would. I guess Thalia in play would be nice, but I did keep a 1-lander. That was on me. I also want to stop 6ing, of course, after they resolve Doomsday. Maybe there's even a world where I was supposed to just hold up for days. Okay, now with the trigger on the stack. Endurance. Stays. Okay. Hopefully this isn't just like force blue card. Rough. Tough. That is the Doomsday matchup for you. We'll see you in round 4. Hey guys, back for game 4 on the draw against Heidegg. This hand's okay. Collector Ouphe, obviously a card that is very feast or famine, but pretty happy to keep this. Probably turn 1 Zenith. Just to turn on any sort of 3-drop the following turn. But we'll see what we're up against first. Opponent went down to 6 cards. Oh, Windswept Heath. Interesting. That makes me think it's going to be some sort of mirror, which makes this Hierarch pretty good, because now we get to save the Green Suns for down the line. No Source to Plowshares is really good. Forest. I guess it could be Elves. But usually... Nope, okay. Sylvan Library, okay. I think here I like just Hexdrinker and Mum tick up Hexdrinker. And then Green Sun's the next turn for Night of Autumn to deal with Sylvan Library. And just hope my opponent doesn't have Blast Zone, or if they do, plays it this turn, and then we Wasteland it. They get down to 10. Interesting. This could also be some sort of NicFit deck. So something like a Pernicious Deed would be really solid. Trophy. Well, yes, we'll search for sure. Green Suns. Okay. Now we still get to Wasteland the Dried Arbor and Knight for Sylvan Library, which is pretty sweet. Oh, no, we don't. Oh, no. Oh, my gosh. Night of Autumn, of course, is in the sideboard. We should have gone for Qasali Primage and kept the mana up, but we didn't. Hopefully that doesn't come back to bite us. Seeing there are 10, I'm going to go for Klothys here. Just a little bit harder for my opponent to deal with. And I'm also going to attack with the Mum. Just to really put on some pressure. Because I get to attack for 2 here, which does increase Klothys' clock, which is kind of cool. So maybe I can just win with Klothys. Got to adapt somehow. I can't let that kind of tilt me or anything like that. But I do have to make sure that when I do donation deck lists, I know the actual deck list inside and out, because Night of Autumn is right here. This is looking like NicFit. Arena Rector, okay. Ooh, oh, Questing Beast is lethal. So good. So good. Let's take out Trophy. Nice. Oh my gosh. So good. The Beast. The Beast with Exalted. No need to worry about Arena Rector. You just got wrecked. So good. Nice. Very cool. For Xaxes as well. That feels really nice to take down game 1. Because I'm going to assume that Arena Rector was going to get something like a Ugin. So, QB. QB. Haha. Alright. sideboarding. I do like Surgicals because I believe Arena Rector is a trigger ability. Same with Veteran Explorer. I don't like... I guess I do like Gaddock Teeg because of some of the Planeswalkers, but they're probably not casting them. They're probably cheating them into play. So Teeg can come out. Knight of Autumn is relevant. I do like the Sanctum. I don't mind cutting down on Thalias. Ouphe as well is pretty bad. Endurance is okay. Flame Blitz is pretty interesting, but probably a little bit too late. Especially against an Ugin, it's just going to destroy it anyway. Maybe Prelate for 3 isn't too bad, because it does stop Deed, which is pretty huge. Wow. Pretty happy to keep this, especially with the sword. It's really nice. Do they have a turn 1 play? They do. Well, I'm pretty happy to swords that here and now to play around any sort of sack effect, especially the Phyrexian Tower. Library's going to be okay. Could definitely see my opponent just taking 8 here. They get to play a land, go down to... yeah. They go to 16. Interesting. Maybe just lands on top. Green Suns for 1. Sure. I think I just want to play Prelate on 1 here to stop Cabal Therapy. And then I can hold up Endurance off my 2 basics and a green source here, which is kind of cool. It might actually be 2. Cabal Therapy isn't the worst in the blind. It also stops Assassin's Trophy, Diabolic Intent, Abrupt Decay. Opponent fetching end step, probably for a Dried Arbor, and also to, oh, okay. Path, okay. There's a world where I don't want to search. And I just want to act like the basics are actually in my deck. And I also get 2 off the Veteran Explorer anyway, so actually I'm not gonna search here. And act like the basics are in my deck, so it might actually force them to go for a Veteran Explorer here just for value. And I don't really need the mana, let's be honest. Land is okay. No blocks. Last Hope is fine. Okay. This is nice because now I might get to attack with the Endurance with Exalted into the Lily if they have nothing. What if they have Opposition Agent? Be kind of cool in this deck. They're also pretty close to just hardcasting Ugin, which is pretty rough. Let's draw from this first. Surgical, not the greatest. And then we can hold up swords here. I guess we can use Noble. Another matchup where Sylvan Library is really solid. They named Surgical? Wow. They named Surgical. That's crazy. Ugin, Khan. I'll concede to Khan. Nuts. Send this back? Yeah. Not much else I can really do. It's a really good name for my opponent. I mean, they definitely played around what they thought I had, and it was Surgical, so very cool. Because if they don't name Surgical, then I can Surgical the Cabal Therapy in response to the Arena Rector, so very heads-up play, which is very cool. A little bit of a slow hand from me. Need to really have a good start, and Sylvan Library is going to be a big part of this, just to make sure I can keep deploying threats. Maybe I'll bring in the Flame and just take out a Knight. Actually, Knight's pretty good. Maybe... yeah. Let's do this. I think Flame, because it deals in end step, that it's okay. Because I can hold it, they probably minus with their first Planeswalker, and then we get to Flame. And it is a nice way to start dealing with Lilianas. I think I'll mull this, even though it has a lot of interaction. It's a tough one. I might actually keep it, because it has some good answers to Veteran Explorer. And it has Knight for something like Sylvan Library if we draw a green source. So actually I'm going to keep this. A little bit rough if they... It also has a basic, which is tough, but I think that's okay. Okay. I'm just going to pass with Endurance up. Oh, no, I should have played the Guy's Cradle. I'll have double green. Oh, no, that's a huge misplay. So now I will just attack with the Dryad Arbor. Yikes. Hopefully that doesn't come back to bite me. We will see. Yeah, because then I probably should just use the Prismatic Ending on the Veteran Explorer. Surgical again, wow. Not much I can do about that. That's tough because holding up endurance also means it plays around the Cabal therapy. So that's really tough. Just a little bit too fast there, playing the plateau when I should have played the cradle. Yeah, I have to. Which is not great. Can't cast it this turn because I do want to play the prismatic ending. But yeah, just that one land drop. Nuts. It all adds up. And it is little mistakes like that where Maverick, you just... It's a small mistake that just snowballs, and it's the reason why you can lose games. Yeah, because Liliana here also turns off Sanctum Prelate because the Cradle no longer taps for mana. I could draw that red thing. See, even Mum here isn't great. No tick up on Lily? Huh. I'm going to prelate for 2. Assassin's Trophy, Abrupt Decay. Part to Exile is a card, but I think this is okay. Yeah, that Cradle. Guess we can draw a card now. Okay. Well, it's something. Let's try to clog the board up. Maybe get to a situation where they have to deal with the Mum here and then a questing beast at the top nearly gets there, but it's looking pretty bad. Library as well, really nice. I really need either Questing Beast. Wasteland buys us a little bit of time. But not if they have a second Dried Arbor. Nice. Not too much we could do there. We shuffle, so we don't really need to draw a card here. Just a tough one. Didn't really draw the right side of the deck, and that guy's Cradle play was definitely very incorrect, so I apologize for that. Long day. We'll see you for game 5. Thanks. Hey, welcome back to match 5. On the draw again. 5 out of 5. Up against Burrow Run. And looking to load. Negative. Just the one lander. Maybe if it was a fetch lander, I might keep this, but definitely not just a plains. I am going to keep this and bottom the Ramanap. And hopefully we draw a land in the first couple of turns, and this game can have some promise. Okay. I don't mind just going for a basic here. In case my opponent is on a wasteland deck, just want to try to build up my mana as much as possible. Forest. I should have actually used the Wooded Foothills for this, because the Windswept Heath can get a Plains. Still a little mistake that hopefully doesn't come back to bite us. Brainstorm off a snow-covered island. Kind of makes me want to go for Green Sun's Fatigue next turn. If I get to Green Sun's Fatigue. Okay. Second Green Suns is actually really nice, because now we get to get a... I'm just going to go a Savannah into Green Suns for Noble Hierarch. Ice Fang's okay. Yikes. I think just doing the same thing here is fine. Or is okay. Sure. Ponder chose to not shuffle. Probably happy here just to throw away the endurance and hopefully it sticks. I could also go for Knight, which is interesting. Maybe Knight, just because I do want the endurance a little bit. I'm probably okay with them having the Uro here, because we have the Prismatics as well. Well, now I can get rid of the Uro. Unless they have Force Blue card. Library gets hit by Prismatic Ending, which is nice. I really want to draw some gas. Not it. I also don't want to throw this Noble into another Ice Fang, so I'm just going to pass back here. Knight's pretty good. So is Hardcast Force. Okay. I'm going to assume my opponents on Terminus or Engineered Explosives. Either of which are pretty good. Teeg. Teeg's pretty interesting. That sticking's pretty good. That does turn off the prismatic ending in my hand because it's a spell with X in its converted mana cost, as I said in the Decktech, but hopefully that doesn't come up. Oh, Endurance? No. Oh, I hate this card. I hate this card. Rough. I don't know why they didn't target us. They just did nothing. Interesting. I'm definitely not going to play around Endurance like I do at Icewind Quaddle with a Thalia, but it's life sometimes. Pretty happy to attack. We're in a pretty bad position here, so... Nice. I do like these. I do like these. I do like the extra Teeg. I kind of like everything nearly. I don't want to oversideboard, but... Let's have a good think about this. I like the endings. I don't mind taking out some number of swords, some number of mana dorks. I really like the blast effects. I really like the chokes. I don't mind the surgicals. Taking off Uro is pretty good. And also like Swords to Plowshares. Skyclaves are nice. Ouphe can come out. Wasteland can come down. Knight can go down to 2. I kind of want the Flame, but we'll see. Second Teeg is pretty good. Knight of Autumn. I'm going to go down to 1 Knight. Maybe just 1 Skyclave. Might just be 1 Swords. No, yeah. I'll keep this. I'm going to get Tager out of the deck. There's a world where back to basics is irrelevant. We have the Pyroblast, so if I go yeah, this is fine. The issue is that outside of this Thalia, I don't have any pressure, which can be an issue if they have the Swords to Plowshares here. Or a prismatic ending. Yep. too reactive. Actually, I don't mind taking out Cradle against this matchup as well, because we're usually down to 1 creature return. Yavimaya also means my opponent can just hold up a reach creature whenever they want, which is pretty tough. If they try to play the Uro here, I'm not going to Pyroblast it because I have 2 ways to deal with it. And if I can get the Skyclave into play, then maybe I can start getting some pressure on the board. This is fine. This also means that drawing into Surgical isn't too bad. They've already drawn 2 cards off the Uros, which is tough, but I do want to get rid of the Uros pretty fast. Ramanap's interesting. Kind of nice just to start making land drops. Ice Sphinx fine. Yavimaya also means my opponent can cast Uro a little bit easier, which is tough. Ooh, okay. Well, that's pretty good. 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 mana. So I can cast 2 of these. This is pretty good. Skyclave, take out the Uro. And then 3 mana. Choke. Oof. And now... I will fetch here for forest. Get rid of this. Nice. It's a pretty good turn from us. Now we get to hold up Pyroblast as well. That's pretty good. Instead, I'm just going to go get Dryad Arbor. Something that I can start attacking with, which is nice, and also hold up Pyroblast here. Let's attack first. Play a land, play Mum. It might even be a world where next turn I do just want to use this Pyroblast on the Ice Fang, just to clear the board a little bit. Paying down to 14. Interesting. All right. Let's untap, because if we draw Swords to Plowshares, I'd much rather use that instead of the Pyroblast or some other removal spell. Or just Questing Beast. Opponent kind of has to force that. They don't. Wow, okay. Well, we do have Mum now, so... I didn't want to attack with everything and then try to save what the Ice Fang blocks with Mum, because then that opens up swords on Questing Beast, which isn't great. No Terminus on top, please. That would be brutal. Wow, they pay more. Nice. Okay. I probably don't mind Prelate. Probably over Gaddock, over Qasali Primage. I still like type double Gaddock. No one expects a second Gaddock. I'll keep this. Turn 2 choke is always fun. Opponent went to 6. I will get a Savannah here, just so I have double white without the Hierarch for Skyclave. That's fine. Pretty happy just to play the Windswept and pass. Means we can hold up a Dried Arbor if we really want to, or we can just go get a basic at the end. Really want to see probably Uro this turn. Just try to surgical it. I was going to say another 3-drop would be really amazing, because it means we don't have to play out the choke preemptively or the Skyclave. I could also preemptively surgical the swords, so it's harder for them to deal with the knight. That's pretty interesting. I actually don't mind that. I think that we have a few answers to deal with Uro anyway. Prismatic Ending. Alright, what do they got? 3 Uro, 2 Teferi, 2 Sylvan Library, 2 Jace, 4 Ice Fang, Brainstorm, Containment Priest, EE, Endurances. Okay. Any Terminus? No Terminus. Okay. Just relying on the EEs, which still Gaddock Teeg turn off, which is nice. Let's snip this so we know what it is. Keep that over here. Take the Lost Swords. Play Knight. So we know about Brainstorm, Prismatic, and other cards. Could see one fetch for blue source and then Brainstorm here. Most likely, so my opponent can try to jam into some sort of removal spell. Or preemptive spell like Jace. Untap Jace would be sweet, untap Teferi would be sweet. Love to see another island here and not just a forest. Can't have it all. Alright. Here's the Prismatic. That's going to be fine. Teferi's actually not the worst. Did we bring in that 1 mana? No, we didn't. Probably should have. Oh, Teeg. Teeg's interesting because it turns off the removal spell in their hand. I don't mind Teeg here. Opponent really thinking about it. Brainstorm's okay. So now we don't really know their hand. One Misty, two Flooded Strands. Okay. Definitely not going to attack here. I'm just going to pass. Then next turn we can 2-spell, hopefully. Another island. Spice. Ice Fang. Sure. So what do they actually have to get out of a choke? They have one bounce to fairy left, and that's really it. Because engineered can't get it. Uro is going to be fine. Yeah, my opponent's going to have a bit of a tough time here. I'd love to see them cast another spell here. Maybe even like a Sylvan Library. Harvest is okay. They can't force because the Gaddock Teeg's in play, which is really nice. Second Wasteland. Alright, let's go with Knight first. Opponent's also down 7 minutes, which is huge. Wow, they've hit double Prismatic Ending, which they can't even cast because the Teeg in play. That is huge. Can we draw Sylvan Library or Green Suns? That'd be really cool. I guess Green Suns wouldn't because of the Teeg. Cradle. I don't want to play this. I think here I'm actually happy trading away this for a card. Through Horizon Canopy. Seeing that we have all this mana. Seems rude not to. Pyroblast. That's actually not the worst. Do I want to start getting aggressive? I don't think I do. I guess they don't currently have mana for endurance up, but I might just try to keep it until I can start attacking with the Knight. Okay. Probably means that it's drew into another Ice Fang. Which, yeah, other than Force, they can't actually counter any of our stuff. Oh, Klothys. So good. I actually don't need to do anything here. I can just hold up Pyroblast and let this game go on. Because, I mean, the only out my opponent has is Teferi Bounce. Wow. Yeah, I mean, my opponent just didn't really have an out. It was really weird because we took it to the stone fort, took out the swords to plowshares, and then my opponent has endurance to win, but we have knight. Engineered explosives is turned off by Teeg. Prismatic endings turned off by Teeg. Jason Mind Sculpt is turned off by Teeg. They have 1 Teferi left, but we have a Pyroblast, and their only counterspell is Force of Will, which is stopped by Teeg. And then we also have Uru, which is stopped by Klothys, and also by Pyroblast, and by Choke. So, just like a soft lock that wasn't too hard to put together. Yeah, I mean, that definitely didn't go the way that I thought it would. Yeah, crazy. Crazy game. Let's do a quick deck tech and go back here. Nice. So overall 2-3, which isn't great, but there were some close games, which is nice. Deck was definitely interesting. I do like that it does have a really nice sideboard or green sun selection, sorry. So you do kind of have a lot of everything for a lot of matchups. I guess the one card that I wasn't big on was the one Skyclave, just because as a one-of, you're not going to see it too often. And by adding in one more white creature, you're not adding in one more green creature, that once you add in, thanks to Green Suns, you virtually have 5 copies straight away. So I guess by adding in Skyclave, what you're saying is that Skyclave Apparition is better than 1 copy of, or say 5 copies of Scavenging Ooze or something like that, which I do like the thought of 2 Skyclaves in the deck. So maybe like 2 in the sideboard, and maybe not like another Endurance in the main deck is pretty strong. Just to really make sure we have something for Delver, because this deck isn't playing Punishing Fire or Lightning Bolt as removal, so having a second Endurance could be really relevant. But yeah, the only other thing was that I was a little bit suspect of playing against a deck like Death and Taxes, where I'm typically taking out Thalia and Gaddock Teeg, probably Ramanap as well, just due to cards like Rest in Peace. So that's 5 cards. And then from the sideboard for D&T, we have Night of Autumn, Skyclave, and maybe Endurance. So I guess we can bring in 3, take out Gaddock Teeg and 2 Thalias. That does leave us with a Thalia in the deck, which isn't that great. So I think I'd probably just change up the board a little bit to be a little bit more friendly for some of the fair Magic games as well. Even something like Maverick in the matchup, I might just want 1 more card that has a bit more overlap with fair decks and unfair decks. Maybe 1 more removal spell. I guess Flame Blitz has kind of taken the spot of that, which didn't really have a role today. There were a lot of spots where it could have. I just didn't have it. But I do like testing this card because it does seem pretty strong, and I do like that it can come down and then in your end step deal with a Planeswalker to make sure it actually does something before your opponent gets to untap and deal with it. So that's pretty cool, instead of being at the end of your opponent's turn. And of course this deck doesn't run Planeswalkers, so that's pretty sweet. The mana base was nice. I thought the mana base was really strong. I thought I might miss the second Birds of Paradise over the Extra Noble, but that didn't really come up. Mum's still great. I did like the package we had here. There was a point where I did go for Night of Autumn game 1, but that's just due to a bit of muscle memory with my own decks. And Crystalline Primage was actually really good and did win us a game, so that's really nice. And I do like having both Teeg and Ouphe in the main deck where possible, so that was good. I think just because of how good Sylvan Library is at the moment, or at least how good I perceive it to be, I could see a spot for a third one, maybe in the sideboard, for decks where you just want it on turn 2. Decks like Deadguy Ale, decks like BANT midrange. It's just such a strong card that your opponent has to have something for, or else if they don't have early pressure, you can just take the 8 straight away and just keep up on cards, because a lot of those games I was down to 1 or 2 cards and my opponent was on 4 or 5, so that's where Sylvan Library can be really good. Otherwise, pretty nice. I guess I didn't really miss Scavenging Ooze, but it is such a good creature that I think if I was going to change this around, I might add the extra Skyclave to the board, which gives me those 4 cards to bring in against FedEx, where I would take out sort of these 4. And then that gives me room for Scavenging Ooze in the main deck, which might be overkill with both Klothys and Endurance, but I kind of think they all do different roles. Endurance is obviously great for like a one-off effect of interacting with graveyards. Klothys just generates value over time, and in a way Scavenging Ooze does as well, but it also just gives you a good way to make sure that against, say, Bulk Hogak in game 1, you do have a way to really control how much they can use their graveyard, and how wide they can go. And then also against a deck like Delver, just to make sure, you know, you can try to gain some incremental life back and really race, because this isn't a Stoneforge Mystic build, it's not a Batterskull build. We don't have ways to really gain too much life outside of Klothys and maybe swords our own creatures in a defensive strategy, but I think that Screws is just so good that it's really hard to not have it in the deck. But I do like that we have gone with the list here where we're just testing out Endurance in the main board and sideboard, and then also Klothys and Surgical. So I can definitely see why it was left out, but I think that if I was going to run this back, I would add in an Ooze, and yeah, make this change to the sideboard. I'd probably take out the Flame Blitz if I was going to take out anything, but yeah, it's a tough one. Maybe even the second Teeg, just because of what I was talking about before, where Teeg is obviously quite good in the matchups where it might get Swords to Plowshare early on, but it's not great against the decks that are playing end-step effects like Chain of Vapor or Fatal Push. So yeah, I think that the second Teeg in the right metagame could be fantastic, but in a pretty wide open metagame might not be the best, but we'll see. But that is gonna be it. This was a pretty fun one. A huge thank you to Lorenzo for the deck list. I very much appreciate the donation. Goes towards the Green Sun Zenith hosting, which is really nice. If you want to find some information about donation deck lists, you can find them in the video description. If you want to find me on Twitter, you can find me at Dukes on Twitch. You can find me on Twitch, of course, streaming live at Dukes on Twitch. That's about it. Huge thank you to Card Hoarder, sponsor of the channel, for lending me these cards. They do a heap of good work behind the scenes. Really like friendly people. Love their service. Just good times everywhere. A huge thank you once again. We'll see you next time. Cheers.